Good morning, Steelers Nation. Jumping on here to recap the Steelers Bills preseason game. A doozy, to say the least. 9-3 final score. Instead of jumping on last night, middle of the night, while you guys are hopefully getting some rest, I just went back and watched like the first half of the game over again. Man, I have a lot of thoughts. Some really ugly ball, to say the least. Again, last night. Yeah, it's preseason. Don't want to overact to these things, but not a great showing at all. And I think Mike Tomlin's like post game press conference kind of reflects that. But y'all know how we get down over here, man. We'll go through some positives, the negatives, everything in between, all that good stuff. So if y'all gonna be a favor, just hit that like button, subscribe, drop me a comment. Quick, easy way to support the channel. If you want more exclusive content, film rooms, etc., consider becoming a member. Lots of cool stuff over there. More to come in the coming weeks as we approach the regular season. Tomlin talked about last week being a JV performance, using his term. But I felt like last night was really, a step backwards to me. Against the Texans, I felt like they moved the football in some different ways. They just really couldn't get out of their own way, with the center quarterback fumbled exchanges, things of that nature. But I feel like last night was just a little bit different. I mean, they got nothing going really whatsoever, really all night, but especially, in the first half, which is really what I was focused on more than anything else. I mean, we got 5 series, I think, from Russ in the first team offense. I think they got 2 first downs. It's really difficult to evaluate, quarterback play in general from the live broadcast viewpoint. So when I do these recaps, I always try to like include that, especially if the quarterbacks don't move the ball a ton or the offense doesn't score a lot of points, just because, the all 22 is always going to be the best viewpoint from the quarterback standpoint. But I thought the pass protection was a significant issue last night. I don't think that you guys need me to tell you that. I think that was pretty obvious watching the game. I'm still really curious on the mobility aspect of Russ because that is a huge part of his game, being able to get outside of the pocket, extend plays. We didn't see it much last night. We didn't really see him get out on the edge. Didn't really see him stride out or anything. So, like, that's a question that I wanted answered. We talked about that in the preview. Didn't get it answered last night. Probably his best play of the night, I think, was finding Van Jefferson kind of on that sit or over the ball route on the mesh concept for a first down. But, 5 drives, 2 first downs. They ended up missing a 52-yard field goal on his last drive. I mean, it is what it is. It wasn't great. But, speaking of the pass protection, man, we talked a little bit about Broderick last week, some struggles, particularly like, in the run games, pass protection stuff. Just to be honest, that performance is about as bad as you're going to see from a starter in a preseason game. I mean, just being honest with you guys, I think Greg Rousseau is a really good player. Like, he's kind of came into his own over the last couple of years. But I mean, the reps between those two guys weren't remotely competitive. I think his hands and feet are still a mess from a technical standpoint. He's still wearing that brace, kind of like what I said on Twitter last night, just through the game. Not really. We know he's not 100%. I don't think he's 100% even with his range of motion with that brace. So that's why I'm not, ready to push the panic button or anything like that. But at the same time, like, I am concerned. I think it's totally reasonable to have just a little bit of worry about like how he's looked, especially recently. So I'm not a huge fan of their plan this summer, making him bounce back and forth between left and right side, things like that. But, it is what it is. Like, that's where we're at. And I'm a little bit concerned for sure as we head into the regular season, especially knowing that this offense is going to go how the offensive line goes. Mike Tomlin, I think it was their last practice in Latrobe. He was asked by a local media member about, what are his thoughts on the offensive line play and how those guys are coming together. And, he was talking about, we've invested a lot in these guys, so we expect some really good things. And like, I think that's the thing too, is like they spent a lot of draft capital in recent years. They signed 2 guards in free agency. Like, this offensive line has to be at least above average to solid unit, in my opinion, this year, if the offense is going to be where, really where I think it could probably reach its ceiling. So it's just something to talk about. Even Zach Frazier, I thought, he had a really strong week last week. It seems like he's going to be the week 1 starter, especially now that Nate Herbig is banged up. And I think he's probably going to be the week 1 starter regardless. But, I thought there were some times where, he struggled a little bit last night as well. Some poorly executed screens due to blocking. That's definitely something that I've noticed too, like just being there in training camp, watching them practice, and also just the first 2 weeks of the preseason. We're going to see a lot of screens this year. They haven't been extremely well executed thus far for a myriad of different reasons, but it's something to note. I mean, the list goes on and on. I don't want to seem overly negative or critical, but man, I mean, there are very few bright spots on that side of the ball for me to get on here and like talk about. When you score 3 points, don't really move the ball at all. I mean, it's just really difficult. But before transitioning kind of to the defensive side of the ball, I want to talk about Justin Fields, Arthur Smith kind of wrap things up there. Starting with Art, I thought the play calling last week was pretty solid. Despite whatever they scored, 12 points or whatever, they left a lot of points on the board. I thought he was really solid from a design and a play calling standpoint. But if I'm going to go out of my way to say play caller is better than the results indicated last week, I feel like I probably deserve to, be a little bit critical of his performance this week. I just didn't like a lot of the stuff they did last night. From a design standpoint, the execution was obviously bad. They scored 3 points. Um, but just some weird like second long runs, which I felt like were a detriment to their chances of picking up those possession downs that Tomlin talked a lot about in the post-game presser. I don't like running the ball in second long, and it's something that he did a couple of times last night that really just made me scratch my head. And then like the 4th-and-2 play or whatever in the red zone on that zone read. I mean, everyone in the stadium, including everyone on the Buffalo Bills defense, knew that was coming. Execution wasn't great there, in many different instances, right? But I felt like over the course of the night, the offense had absolutely no rhythm to it, outside of just like a couple stretches of plays. And, at some point, that does fall at least partially on the offensive coordinator. So is what it is. That's just my, kind of bird's eye view of it before we get the all 22. But, as far as Justin, man, people are so sensitive about quarterbacks now on social media. It is the quarterback discourse, man. It's just crazy. But as far as Justin goes, I thought he made some good plays with his legs. He had the one like 20-yard explosive run or whatever. I love seeing that. Made a couple plays out of structure too, like him scrambling. He broke that tackle, ended up finding Fitzpatrick on the sideline. That ball looked like it was tipped, but there's some good things just outside of structure from Justin and as a runner. I thought they had a dagger concept right before the 2-minute warning. You guys can go watch it back. That it looked like it was there to me. Looked like he needed to hit his back foot, rip it with some anticipation over the middle. The thing with Justin, I've said this really, really throughout his career, but especially like since the Steelers have acquired him, I just really want to see him play faster, man. From a decision-making standpoint, it's just really frustrating to me. Even if he's not winning from the pocket, you're the best athlete on the field. Use your athleticism. There were just times last night where I felt like he was just, thinking too much, like hesitating before he's really taking off with his legs. Is that, I totally think that, maybe they are coaching him a little bit, saying like, hey, we want you to maybe make some plays within the pocket. But I think Tomlin, has really said it best, and kind of like how I look at Justin too. He's like, you don't want to strip him of his natural gifts and like what he does best, which is run the football and make plays with his legs. So, yeah, I want to see improvement from the pocket, but like I think there are times where if you don't like if he's in the pocket and he doesn't want to play the play or doesn't feel comfortable making a certain throw versus a certain type of coverage, just run the ball. Like you're the best athlete on the defense or on the field. So I don't know, man. I would like for him to just play a little bit faster. There were definitely times too some weird kind of instances. That deep ball miss on that play action shot play, it was actually a really good play design by Art. It looked like the wide receiver mistimed his jump, maybe. I thought the throw still looked a little bit too high or far to me. Weird looking play regardless. I would like to see that from the back end just to get a better view of like the trajectory of the ball. But they left some plays on the field for sure last night. And, on the bright side, man, the defense look really good, especially in the first half. So this is kind of the positive portion of the broadcast. Nick Herbig got a sack on a stunt early on. Really nice schematic design from TA on that one. He had another hustle play sack. I think they gave him maybe half credit for the last one, but Herbig's strong summer really continues. I think the Steelers have 3 edge rushers that can go toe to toe with pretty much anybody in the entire NFL. I really like the rotation that they got. I think the front seven in general has a chance to be very, very, very good. Keanu Benton continues to impress. I think he looks noticeably leaner to me. Like he talked about how he was down about 12 pounds, I think, or so from last year. He looks fantastic, man, I think. But, man, Larry Ogunjobi, even last night, flashed. I felt like big time. He got into the backfield several times. I saw a really nice rip move. That sack that Herbig ended up cleaning up, Ogunjobi had the quarterback in his grasp, just couldn't get him down to the ground. But, I like seeing Ogunjobi get into the backfield multiple times. He ended up as a winner last night for me on my Dudes and Duds column. So, probably the most active player we saw last night on either side of the ball was Mark Robinson. He was everywhere, put him as a winner as well. I actually put him back on the 53-man roster projection for my column on Steelers. Now that should be up right now. You guys can go read that on who I think is going to make the final 53. But he, we know him as kind of like that thumper type. He had some good plays against the run, not really overly surprising, physical kind of hitter. But I thought he had really good coverage on that interception that Mitch threw. Terrible ball by Mitch, but he had really good coverage. Maintained his leverage, did a good job, forcing a high throw. And then he also, like, he made, I think, at least one tackle on special teams, maybe multiple. So, he was a guy that we talked about. He needed a big week, and I feel like he got it. So, good for Mark Robinson, man. Thomas Graham had a nice PBU. I think defending, I think it was Keon Coleman on a drag route. Really liked what I seen there. Beanie Bishop didn't play last night. Graylin Arnold, I think, got put on IR. I mean, slot corner spot is still open, I think. So I'm not really sure what the plan is there right now. I think it's gonna be Beanie if he's healthy. But still to be determined there. I think Thomas Graham's had a really nice training camp. He's a guy that's been consistently around the ball. I like that a lot. I actually thought that he could have had an interception last night too. I'll be sure to tweet that play out on my Twitter account because I really think that he could have picked this ball off. But still like what I see from Kyron Johnson off the edge too. Like his burst off the ball and has been really intriguing to me. I know he's a little bit on the smaller side. Do the Steelers want to keep two small backup edge rushers? I'm not really sure, but if I had it my way, he's probably who I'd give that edge four spot to. But just in terms of like things to clean up on the defensive side of the ball, I thought as the night kind of wore on, you saw the run defense kind of tail off a little bit. You had a lot of second, third defensive linemen in the game, but really felt like Buffalo, especially in the third quarter, really began to kind of wear them down with Ray Davis and their offensive line. Tomlin made a really good point. I felt like in the post-game conference as well, talking about some issues they had in the Cracker Place game, some quarterbacks, losing contain, and things of that nature, not fitting the run the proper way. So I think as far as that side of the ball goes, there was a much more to be excited about. I mean, overly positive. I really wish we would have seen Josh Allen last night instead of Trubisky. I know McDermott said he wanted to play the majority of his starters. We did get a good look at a lot of the starters on both sides of the ball, but would have liked to see Josh out there just from a competition standpoint. But maybe the biggest winner of the night, punter Cameron Johnson, booming punts, man, over 55-yard average. Seems like they're really letting him kick the living crap out of the ball as far as he could. Felt like there was times where like it almost seemed like he was out kicking the coverage, but I wonder if that's more of like a gunner issue more than anything else. I kind of want to go back and look at those plays, but I really want to see the tape there. I mean, I think it's realistic to say that the Steelers are going to get better play and more consistent play, which has always been the most important part from their punting unit this year. I do think that the gunner topic of discussion probably needs to start coming up a little bit more because, that's now that we get closer to the regular season, got to figure out who's going to be on the outside on those plays. I also thought Calvin Austin did a good job with, like, I think the first punt return that he had, maybe a little too indecisive, a little too much dancing, but I thought over the course of the night, he had some nice moments as a returner as well, just getting upfield, getting what he could. But I think that pretty much does it for me. I wish last night was more exciting for you guys. I'm sorry. I apologize on the team's behalf. But it's preseason. It is what it is. At least we got football on television screen, right? My game plan was to get a film room or maybe two before I go out of town for a couple of days. So let me know if there's something you all want to see. I have a couple of ideas, but we'll see. We'll see kind of what pops for me once the all 22 comes out. But as always, I really appreciate the support from you guys. The subs, the new subs from that subscribed last week. Appreciate you guys. The long-term subs and the new channel members alike. All you guys, really appreciate it. If you're looking for Steelers gear for the regular season, please make sure to check out our sponsor, Homage, using the link in the description. I think they got a 20% sale going on right now over there. So lots of good stuff. Lots of cool merch for you guys to go check out. But I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. Peace and love.